brands have excluded Black women. The industry is pretty segregated in terms of how Black women are marketed to. There are a lot of white brands who haven't catered to Black women at all. In addition to this, Black people are still being discriminated due to their hair, especially in the workplace. There have been a lot of advocacy efforts here in the US with the Crown Act, which is basically legislation to prohibit race-based hair discrimination, which has kind of stalled in Congress. There's so much work to do in terms of that. In addition to that, we did a little bit of research and we found that only 12% of children's books feature a Black protagonist. That's extremely problematic. And you really can't be who you can't see, right? So we really wanted to make sure that we kind of focused on representation and story time. So Tangle Teezer briefed Don't Cry Wolf to kind of create an activism campaign to take a stand on the issue and to celebrate all Black hair, the natural hair community, and improve representation. So the primary objectives of this campaign were to elevate Black creators and Black businesses across the globe, to kind of create an emotional campaign with the existing and new audiences, and to take a stand.
The idea was that we were going to kind of remake 3 traditional Brothers Grimm fairy tales and turn them into kind of modern day, really kind of up-to-date stories that featured Black protagonists.
One was called Zell Let Your Hair Out, which was a remake of Rapunzel, which was the hero book. The second book was Jackson and the Hairstylist, which was a remake of Jack and the Beanstalk. And then the final book was The Puppet Who Wanted Hair, and that was a remake of Pinocchio. It was really important for Tangle Teezer and Don't Cry Wolf to ensure that these books were authored by Black creators. So we worked with a Black publisher, Woke Babies. We also worked with an award-winning Black author. Her name is Trish Cook.
We actually turned our kind of hero book, which was the Rapunzel remake, which was called Zell Let Out Your Hair, into a kind of animated feature film that ran alongside it and was narrated by a really cool up-and-coming actress in Hollywood called Lexi Underwood. And all of that was kind of packaged up into lots of different pieces of social media content that ran across Tangle Teezer's owned channels. But then we also collaborated with a bunch of other really incredible influencers who took the books and read them to their children during story time. We also had a couple of other influencers that just posted about it off the back of us kind of gifting them some of the products. We also had Reese Witherspoon that got involved with the campaign as well and talked about it on her own social media. I suppose finally we had just regular everyday people who were just kind of buying the books off the shelves and then just enjoying them with their families, just posting about their experiences of reading those books together at bedtime.
Additionally, we also had a piece of research. So we did polling in the US and UK. We polled Black children and parents, and we asked questions about story time, representation, and just overall Black beauty, which was really interesting.
So we commissioned our own research, and we also just basically looked at Google to find out absolutely everything that we could possibly find out to kind of inform the strategy behind the campaign. So there was kind of 2 things we wanted to know, I guess. The first was to really dig into and understand how Black women really feel about their hair. And then the second thing was, how can we kind of make Tangle Teezer relevant to that discussion without it feeling really kind of performative and like we were kind of inserting the brand into conversations when it didn't need to be there.
As I mentioned earlier, beauty brands have historically excluded Black women, and Tangle Teezer understand that they are a part of that because obviously they are a English, British, white-owned brand. So one of the things we wanted to make sure before we conceptualized and created this campaign was that Tangle Teezer were buttoned up internally in terms of kind of inclusion and diversity.
We looked at Tangle Teezer's existing audience on social media, and one of the things that they were really interested in was books and literature. And that was something that was quite unique to Tangle Teezer's audience versus some of their competitors. So we really wanted to see how we could kind of integrate books and literature into the campaign itself.
The campaign results were amazing. So we secured about 275 pieces of coverage to date, and 21 pieces of those were really quality top tier coverage.
And aside from kind of engagement and obviously getting this content out there and into, I guess, as many families and hands as we could possibly do, it also made like a really tangible impact. So we raised over $20,000 for a charity over in the US called Pretty Brown Girl. We sold obviously a huge number of books, but we also gave away a whole bunch of books to British schools as well, so that they could kind of get access to these. Off the back of that, all of the proceeds will obviously go to the creators of the book and the publisher and the author Trish. So the fact is that they're still out there and they're still making an impact, and hopefully still being enjoyed by families over in the US and in the UK as well.
Ultimately, the campaign achieved the objectives we wanted to achieve. It really kind of elevated woke babies in terms of their prominence. Through this campaign, it opened a lot of doors for them in terms of a lot of major retailers. And in terms of the Pretty Brown Girl Foundation, ultimately, we were doing this to kind of work for a really organization that's striving to, uplift Black girls. We were able to raise a lot of money for them. And I think ultimately, we're really happy with the results.
Young people, sort of under 35, 36, and people from Black British and British Asian communities were less likely to take up the vaccine because of misinformation. The biggest challenge with the vaccine campaign was what was happening in the world. Sometimes it's important to understand that although you have the channel and the presence to talk about something, you're not necessarily the right person to talk about something.
Always put the user and the audience front of mind. Put yourself in the mind of your followers.